The sky burned red over New York as the war reached Earth. Giant alien ships hung above the clouds like black scars against the sun. Their weapons glowed, humming with energy that no human technology could match. People screamed, ran, prayed, but nothing could stop what was coming. The Alliance had promised to protect Earth. They said we were brothers under the same stars. But when the enemy fleets arrived, the Alliance turned their ships away. They left Earth to burn. From the command bridge of the Vanguard, Admiral Rhea Kane watched the betrayal unfold. Her eyes were cold and steady as the first bombardments hit the surface. The screen flickered with images of falling cities, London gone in light, Tokyo swallowed by fire, New York turning into a storm of dust. The voices on the radio cried for help. Alliance Command, we're losing power, they're targeting civilians, then silence. One by one, the signals faded. Rhea stood straight, hands clenched behind her back. They said they'd help us, whispered Lieutenant Mercer, her young communications officer. They lied, Rhea answered quietly. They used us as a shield. She knew the truth now. The Alliance wanted Earth destroyed to slow down the enemy's advance. Humans were the perfect distraction, useful, expendable, forgotten. The Vanguard was one of the last ships left. Its engines were damaged, its shields failing. Around them drifted the broken remains of the Earth Defense Fleet, hundreds of ships, now cold and dark. Yet in that silence, something inside Rhea refused to die. Plot a course out of orbit, she ordered. Where to? Mercer asked. Anywhere they can't find us. The Vanguard rose above the burning planet, its hull glowing from heat and fire. Below, Earth cracked open like an old scar. Oceans boiled, continents broke apart. But even in destruction, Earth looked beautiful, like a dying sun. The crew watched in silence. No one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the engines and the faint sobbing of someone at the back of the bridge. Rhea closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw her home. Blue skies, green forests, her mother's face. All gone. She opened her eyes again, and the fire returned to them. Send out a transmission, she said. Mercer hesitated. To whom? To whoever's still alive. He nodded and began typing. Rhea stepped forward and spoke. Her voice was low but clear. This is Admiral Rhea Kane of the Earth Defense Armada. If anyone can hear this, Earth has fallen. The Alliance has betrayed us. They turned their guns on our people and left us to die. But this is not the end. We are still here. We will survive. And one day, we will return. Her words echoed through the empty void. Somewhere, maybe, someone would hear them. Hours later, the Vanguard and a handful of damaged ships jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, the planet that gave them life turned to ash. The war was over for Earth, but not for humanity. In the cold darkness of space, Rhea stood alone on the bridge, watching the stars slide past. She knew the road ahead would be long. Supplies were low, morale broken. But she also knew that revenge would keep them alive. We'll make them pay, she whispered to herself. Every one of them. In the months that followed, the survivors drifted through dead systems, scavenging fuel and parts. They found other human ships, refugees, soldiers, freighters that had escaped the bombardment. Slowly, piece by piece, they began to rebuild. They called themselves the Ghost Fleet. No one knew where they were. No one even believed they still existed. But every survivor carried the same fire in their heart, the memory of Earth burning and the promise of vengeance. One night, as the fleet rested in the shadow of a cold blue star, Rhea recorded another message. She looked straight into the camera, her face hard and calm. They think we're gone, she said. They think humanity is finished. But they forgot one thing. She paused, letting the silence grow. Humans don't die easy. She sent the message into deep space, unencrypted. A challenge. A warning. Somewhere, far away, alien leaders would receive it and tremble. They would remember Earth, and they would remember what they had done. Rhea turned off the recorder and looked out the window. The The stars shone like sparks across the dark, and in each spark, she saw the light of home. "We're coming for them all," she said quietly. And with that, the ghost fleet moved on, silent, hidden, unstoppable, the last shadow of a fallen world, and the first whisper of its revenge. The deep space beyond the ruined colonies was silent, darker than anything the survivors of Earth had ever known. Months had passed since the fall. The fleet that escaped, barely 24 ships, now drifted between dying stars, scavenging whatever they could find. Their engines wheezed, their hulls scarred from old battles. Yet, against every odd, the humans were still alive. They called themselves the Ghost Fleet, a name whispered by traders and pirates across the outer systems. No one had seen them, but stories spread like wildfire. Humanity had not died, they had vanished into the void, waiting for the right time to strike back. Admiral Rhea Kane stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, her eyes scanning the endless dark. The ship's lights flickered, running on half power. The crew had grown thinner. Sickness, exhaustion, hopelessness had claimed many, but those who remained were hard as steel. Rhea had seen her people go from despair to determination. They no longer cried for Earth, they swore vengeance in its name. "Status report," she said quietly. Lieutenant Mercer, pale and weary, replied, "We've located a derelict station near the edge of the Varan Belt. It looks abandoned, maybe since the last war." Rhea nodded. "Set a course. If it has supplies, we take them. If it has survivors, we help them." The Vanguard turned toward the faint signal. The fleet followed behind, fractured cruisers, cargo vessels turned into warships, and a few stealth frigates rebuilt from wreckage. The humans had learned to live like ghosts, unseen, unheard, forgotten. As they approached the station, its shadow loomed across the scanners. It was massive, half-broken, drifting without power. Old alien markings covered its hull. Rhea ordered a small team to board it. She went herself. Inside, the air was cold and thin. Flashlights cut through the dust. Strange symbols lined the walls, glowing faintly even after centuries. Mercer spoke softly, "This place, it's ancient. Pre-Alliance, maybe." Rhea's boots echoed on the metal floor. "Whatever it is," she said, "it's ours now." In the central chamber, they found a sealed vault. Inside lay what looked like a weapon, smooth black metal with faint blue light pulsing inside. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. "Commander, readings are off the charts," said Dr. Hale, their science officer. "This isn't just a weapon. It's a reactor, maybe a gravity core. Something far beyond our understanding." Rhea stared at it, silent for a long moment. Then she said, "We take it." Back on the Vanguard, the engineers worked day and night. They studied the artifact, feeding power through it carefully. When it activated, space itself seemed to tremble. The gravity around the ship warped slightly, as if the Vanguard was no longer bound by normal physics. For the first time in months, Rhea felt something like hope. "This could change everything," Mercer whispered. Rhea nodded. "No," she said softly. "This will end everything." Weeks passed. The fleet grew stronger. They scavenged alien wrecks, stole fuel from forgotten depots, and trained their pilots relentlessly. Humanity had become a shadow army. And still, Rhea's promise echoed among them. "We will return." One night, as the fleet rested near the edge of an asteroid field, the silence broke. "Admiral," Mercer said urgently, "we're picking up a transmission. It's weak, but I think it's Alliance code." The bridge went still. Rhea walked forward. "Play it." A burst of static filled the air, followed by a distorted voice. "This is the Veldrak patrol ship Narthuan. Unidentified vessels, respond immediately. You are in restricted space." The crew froze. The Veldrak, one of the races that betrayed Earth. Rhea's expression didn't change. "How far?" "Less than 2,000 clicks and closing fast," Mercer replied. "They haven't seen us yet, but they will." Rhea looked at the dark space ahead, then back at her crew. "Not this time," she said quietly. "This time, we don't run." She turned to her officers. Power up the engines. Arm all weapons. Silent formation. The Ghost Fleet moved like predators through the dark. No radio signals. No lights. Only the hum of their engines and the pulse of vengeance. The Veldrak ship entered the field, scanning. Its captain, confident and careless, didn't expect anything in this dead zone. Then, without warning, the humans struck. The first shot came from the Vanguard, a focused plasma beam that tore straight through the alien ship's hull. Before the Veldrak could react, 2 more ships attacked from below, disabling its engines. The battle lasted less than a minute. When it was over, the alien ship drifted lifeless. Rhea watched from the bridge, eyes cold. "Send a message," she said. Mercer hesitated. "What message?" Rhea's lips curved into a faint, hard smile. "Tell them who we are." A few minutes later, the Veldrak distress beacon lit up. It carried a single signal across the stars, repeating over and over in every frequency known to the Alliance. A message carved into data metal and transmitted without encryption. It read, "For Earth." That night, rumors began to spread through the outer colonies. Miners whispered that the humans had returned. Traders spoke of a fleet that struck from nowhere and vanished again. The Alliance governments dismissed it as nonsense, but deep down, fear began to stir. Humanity, once broken, had become something else. Something the galaxy could no longer control. Back on the Vanguard, Rhea stood alone at the viewport, watching the stars. "They'll come for us now," Mercer said softly behind her. Rhea nodded. "Good," she replied. "Let them come." The Ghost Fleet vanished once more into the dark, leaving only wreckage behind. But across the galaxy, in council chambers and military outposts, one phrase began to echo in secret meetings and sleepless dreams: "The humans are back." The galaxy had not seen a human warship in almost 2 years, yet whispers of their return spread like wildfire through the trading routes. The Veldrak colony on Circa 9 laughed at the rumors. To them, humans were ghosts, weak creatures who had destroyed their own world. They had forgotten the screams of Earth, the betrayal that had turned the blue planet into ash. But far away, hidden in the shadows of a red dwarf star, the Ghost Fleet was preparing for war. Admiral Rhea Kane stood before her crew, a quiet fire in her eyes. "They think we're dead," she said. "Let's remind them what it means to be human." The command deck was tense. Engineers checked weapon systems. Pilots ran through targeting drills. For months they had trained in silence, mastering ambush tactics and stealth maneuvers. Their ships were patched together from wrecks, but every human vessel carried a soul of vengeance. The target was simple: Circa 9, a Veldrak mining world that supplied energy crystals to the Alliance fleets. Destroying it would be more than an attack, it would send a message. Rhea ordered the fleet into formation. The Vanguard led, followed by the Odyssey and the Valkyrie. Smaller corvettes hid within asteroid shadows, their hulls painted black. "All ships, engage silent mode," Rhea commanded. "No transmissions, no lights. They won't even know we're here until it's too late." As they approached Circa 9, the planet's orange glow filled the viewport. Below, vast mines carved into the surface like open wounds. Veldrak transports moved in lazy patterns, unguarded. The aliens had grown comfortable. They believed their betrayal had erased humanity forever. Rhea watched in silence, her fingers tapping the console. "They should have finished the job," she murmured. "Now we finish theirs." With a simple hand gesture, she gave the order. The Ghost Fleet struck without warning. From the darkness of space came blinding light. Human torpedoes streaked across the void, tearing through defense grids in seconds. Explosions bloomed like red flowers against the planet's night side. Veldrak pilots scrambled in panic, but their ships were slow and disorganized. They were miners, not soldiers. The humans moved like shadows, appearing, striking, vanishing again. Within minutes, the main refinery was gone. The control towers collapsed under plasma fire. The Veldrak governor screamed over open comms, "Who dares attack the Circa system? Identify yourselves. Rhea leaned toward her console, voice calm and cold. This is Admiral Rhea Kane of Earth. You remember Earth, don't you? The alien's voice cracked with shock. You, humans were extinct. We were, Rhea said. Now we're something else. The signal cut off as the Vanguard fired its final volley. The governor's ship disappeared in a burst of light. The battle was over in less than 10 minutes. Silence returned to the void. Below, the planet burned. The Ghost Fleet didn't stay to watch. They left behind only wreckage and a message carved into the side of the destroyed control tower. 3 words burned in alloy. For Earth always. As the fleet retreated into deep space, the crew gathered in the observation bay. No one spoke for a long time. They watched the fires fade behind them. Some smiled grimly. Others stared with haunted eyes. They had killed for the first time since Earth's fall, and it felt both terrible and right. Rhea broke the silence. This is just the beginning, she said softly. They'll come for us now. Mercer nodded. Let them try. We're ready. But deep down, Rhea knew they weren't ready, not yet. The Veldrak would scream for vengeance, and the Alliance would listen. Humanity had revealed itself too soon, but she couldn't regret it. They needed the galaxy to know Earth still had teeth. In the following days, transmissions spread across the network, reports of ghost ships, of human voices on encrypted channels. Panic rippled through the border systems. Some alien traders began abandoning their routes, afraid of ambushes in the dark. Even the Alliance Council held secret meetings to discuss the rumors. The official line was denial, but behind closed doors, the leaders whispered one name, Rhea Kane. Back aboard the Vanguard, the mood was different. For the first time since the war, the crew smiled. They ate together, repaired the ship, and sang old Earth songs in the mess hall. It wasn't joy, it was purpose. They were no longer running, they were fighting back. That night, Rhea stood alone at the viewport, staring into the distant stars. She thought of the cities that once lit the night on Earth, now replaced by alien suns. She thought of the billions who had died believing the Alliance was their friend. And she swore silently that every one of those deaths would be repaid. Admiral! Mercer's voice broke her thoughts. Incoming transmission from one of our scouts. They found something. Rhea turned. What is it? A beacon, he said. Alliance design. Looks like they're sending out search teams. They're trying to find us. Rhea smiled faintly. Good. That means they're afraid. She walked to the console. Tell the fleet to prepare for new orders. If they want to find us, we'll make sure they remember what happens when they do. As the Vanguard turned toward the next system, the stars outside seemed sharper, colder. The galaxy had awakened to a new truth. The humans were not gone. They were hunting. And for every betrayal, for every city turned to ash, for every life lost on that burning blue world, they would strike back, one world at a time. The Ghost Fleet moved on, silent and unseen, carrying with them the wrath of Earth and the promise that the galaxy would never again forget the name of humanity. The attack on Circa 9 shook the galaxy. What was once dismissed as rumor became undeniable truth. The humans had returned. The Alliance Council met in secret chambers on Sereth Prime, their capital world. Around a polished black table sat the leaders of the Veldrak, the Thale Dominion, the Auric Syndicate, and other species that once called themselves humanity's allies. They watched a hologram of the destroyed mining world, the burning remains still drifting in orbit. They were supposed to be extinct, hissed the Veldrak delegate, his silver eyes narrowing. You all swore the humans were finished. The Thale ambassador, a tall creature wrapped in silver robes, replied coldly, They were. We made sure of it. Apparently not, said another voice from the shadows. It was Counselor Reiner of the Auric, his voice deep and harsh. And if they are truly back, they will come for us all. Fear rippled through the chamber. Each species had taken part in Earth's destruction. Each one carried the stain of betrayal. The Veldrak had fired the first shots. The Thale had blockaded the refugee ships. The Auric had supplied the weapons that turned cities to glass. Now the ghosts of humanity were haunting them. Meanwhile, far from Sereth Prime, the Ghost Fleet drifted near the edge of a dying nebula. The air inside the Vanguard was tense but alive with purpose. Rhea Kane stood at the center of the bridge, surrounded by her officers. "Our message worked," she said. "They're afraid. And fear makes them weak." Mercer looked up from his console. "We intercepted a coded Alliance transmission," he said. "They're holding emergency talks about us. But, Admiral, there's more. The message we cracked, it wasn't just a warning. It included coordinates to an archive station. I think it's connected to what happened before the war." Rhea leaned closer. "What kind of archive?" "Top secret," Mercer replied. "Buried records, sealed by the Council. It might tell us why they betrayed Earth." Rhea's expression hardened. "Plot a course. If there's truth there, I want it." The fleet jumped through hyperspace, emerging hours later above a small moon orbiting a dead planet. The archive station floated silently in orbit, its lights dim but still active. It was an old Alliance facility, long abandoned. The Ghost Fleet sent in a team led by Rhea herself. Inside, the corridors were coated in dust and silence. Old consoles flickered weakly as they powered up. Dr. Hale connected her scanner. "This station still holds data," she said. "I can access it, but it's locked under something big, Council clearance level." "Bypass it," Rhea said. After hours of decoding, the truth began to emerge. Holograms flickered to life, showing old Council meetings, secret communications, and one file marked Operation Ashfall. As the video played, the room fell silent. It showed the leaders of the Alliance, years before the war, discussing strategy. "The humans are growing too fast," said one alien voice. "They expand, adapt, and they don't know their place." Another replied, "Their numbers will surpass ours within decades. They must be contained." Then the Veldrak representative said the words that burned into Rhea's mind forever. "When the war begins, we sacrifice Earth. Let the enemy strike there. Humanity will fall, and the balance of power will remain." Rhea stood frozen. Her crew stared at the screen in disbelief. "It was never about the enemy," Mercer whispered. "They planned it all along." Rage filled the room. Every soldier, every survivor who had lost family, now knew the truth. They hadn't been victims of war. They had been betrayed to protect the galaxy's balance. Rhea clenched her fists. "They murdered billions to keep control," she said. "And now, we take it from them." They copied every file, every recording, every secret. When they returned to the Vanguard, Rhea called the fleet together. Her face appeared on every screen. "We now hold proof," she said. "The Alliance destroyed Earth to keep us weak. They called it balance. I call it blood. The galaxy deserves to see what they did." That night, the Ghost Fleet hijacked the galactic network. Across thousands of worlds, screens flickered and changed to show the recordings from the archive. Every being in the Alliance saw the truth. Their leaders' cold words, the betrayal of humanity, the plan to erase an entire world. Protests erupted instantly. Citizens shouted in the streets. Armies hesitated to follow orders. The Alliance's unity began to crack. On Sereth Prime, chaos broke out in the council chambers. "Who released this?" roared the Veldrak delegate. "Who dares?" "The humans," Reiner growled. "Who else?" In the confusion, Rhea's voice cut through every frequency. "This is Admiral Rhea Kane of the Ghost Fleet. You thought you could erase us. You thought Earth would be forgotten. But the stars remember, and now so will you. Your crimes will not be hidden. The age of your power ends tonight." Her broadcast ended, and for the first time in centuries, the mighty Alliance trembled. The people had seen their leader's betrayal. Planets began to rebel. Fleets refused commands. The galaxy was changing. But in the shadows of that chaos, danger stirred. Mercer approached Rhea with grim news. "Admiral," he said, One of our scouts went missing near the frontier. Before they disappeared, they reported something, an Alliance armada. Thousands of ships. They're moving toward the nebula. Rhea looked at the stars ahead, eyes like fire. Then they've found us, she said quietly. Good. Let them come. The ghosts of Earth are waiting. The message of Earth's betrayal had shattered the galaxy's balance. Protests turned into riots, and entire fleets mutinied against their leaders. The once proud alliance was breaking apart, its power crumbling under the weight of its own lies. But while the galaxy argued and burned, the Ghost Fleet was already on the move. They had no interest in politics or justice. They wanted vengeance. Admiral Rhea Kane stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. Each glowing point marked a world that had taken part in Earth's destruction. We strike them all, she said coldly. Every one of them. The officers around her nodded silently. The plan was simple but brutal, coordinated attacks on multiple systems at once. Each strike would hit a supply world, a command base, or a planet that once fired upon Earth during the war. We won't just take their ships, Rhea said. We'll take their pride. The Ghost Fleet divided into smaller task groups and vanished into hyperspace. Their first target was the Veldrak homeworld, Arkan VA, a massive city planet surrounded by defense satellites. The Veldrak had always been proud of their technology, believing their shields could stop anything. They were wrong. The Vanguard emerged from hyperspace above the planet with 2 escort ships, cloaked under distortion fields. Rhea gave the order, and the fleet unleashed the weapon they had discovered months ago, the gravity imploder. A sphere of blue light appeared in space, silent and perfect, then collapsed inward with impossible force. The gravitational wave that followed crushed the satellites and tore open the planet's upper atmosphere. Cities were ripped apart as oceans rose and burned in midair. In less than an hour, Arkan VA was gone, reduced to floating fragments glowing against the void. Rhea watched without a word. No one on the bridge spoke. When the silence grew too heavy, Mercer finally whispered, "They deserved it, didn't they?" Rhea's eyes stayed on the dying planet. "Deserve has nothing to do with it," she said quietly. "This is justice. Earth's justice." From there, the Ghost Fleet struck again and again. The Thale Dominion's military station at Vereen was destroyed before it could even raise shields. The Oryx weapon foundries were turned to dust. The Syndicate's trade routes vanished overnight as human warships cut through convoys like knives through silk. The galaxy began to understand, this was not a rebellion. It was retribution. The Alliance Council tried to fight back, but their fleets were divided. Some captains refused to fire on humans, ashamed of the truth that had been revealed. Others turned their guns on their own allies. Within weeks, the Alliance's great empire became a war zone. But even as victory spread, something dark was growing within the Ghost Fleet. Supplies ran thin, crews grew restless, and revenge began to change them. Soldiers who once fought for Earth now fought only for destruction. They started targeting neutral colonies, places that had nothing to do with the war. Rhea could feel it slipping out of control. One night, she stood alone in her quarters, staring at an old piece of glass she had taken from Earth's ruins, a melted fragment of her childhood home. She held it tightly as Mercer entered the room. "Admiral," he said softly, "you should see this." He handed her a datapad. The screen showed intercepted messages, encrypted transmissions from within the fleet itself. One of the captains, Elias Ward, her own second-in-command, had been contacting the Alliance. "He's offering them coordinates," Mercer said bitterly. "He thinks there's still a chance for peace." Rhea's face darkened. "Peace died when they burned our world." She handed the datapad back and walked to the window, watching the stars drift by. "Elias believes we can rebuild without destroying everything," Mercer said. "He's wrong," Rhea replied coldly. "The only way humanity lives again is if they remember why they feared us." The next day, the fleet struck another world, the Auric capital, a fortress built into the side of a massive moon. The battle was short and merciless. The Ghost Fleet's new weapon tore the moon apart, scattering fire across the void. Rhea gave no speech this time. The war no longer needed words. But Elias Ward watched in silence, his jaw tight. After the destruction, he walked to her on the bridge. "How many more, Admiral?" he asked. "How many worlds before it's enough?" Rhea didn't look at him. "When the stars stop burning," she said. Elias shook his head. "This isn't justice anymore. It's annihilation." "Maybe that's all we have left," she answered. He left the bridge without another word. That night, in the stillness of the ship, Elias recorded a secret message. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the Ghost Fleet. I don't know who will hear this, but Admiral Kane is losing herself. We've become what we hated." He sent the message into the void, never knowing if it would reach anyone. As the vanguard prepared for the next assault, a shadow passed through the fleet, rumors of betrayal, whispers of unrest. Rhea could feel it too, though she said nothing. Humanity's vengeance had become its own kind of war. And somewhere deep down, she wondered if Earth's ghosts were still proud of them, or if even they would have turned away. When the Ghost Fleet vanished once more into hyperspace, they left behind 5 dead worlds and a galaxy that finally understood fear. Yet as the stars bent and stretched before them, Rhea's voice echoed across every human ship. "We were betrayed. We were forgotten. But now they will remember us, for as long as stars burn. For Earth. Always." And the fleet roared back their answer as one, vengeful, broken, unstoppable. The Ghost Fleet had become a storm that the galaxy could no longer ignore. World after world fell to their vengeance, leaving behind nothing but silence and ash. The name of humanity was now spoken in fear, even among those who once admired their courage. But within the fleet itself, cracks had begun to form. The soldiers were exhausted, the supplies thin, and the fire that once burned for justice was turning into something darker. Admiral Rhea Kane felt it every day, the weight of command, the ghosts of the dead whispering in her mind. She had won every battle, but the cost was becoming unbearable. On the bridge of the vanguard, the stars stretched before her, cold and infinite. "Admiral," Mercer said quietly, "Elias Ward has not reported in since the last battle. His ship, the Astrea, broke formation during hyperspace jump." Rhea's expression didn't change, but her heart sank. "Find him," she said. "Now." 4 hours, they searched. Finally, a signal appeared, weak, coming from the edge of the Desari Nebula. The Astrea floated there, powered down, like a ghost. Rhea took a small team and boarded it herself. The corridors were empty, the lights flickering. Bodies of crew members lay in the hallways, killed without a fight. Mercer whispered. There was no resistance. They were executed. Rhea moved silently toward the command deck, her weapon drawn. When the door opened, Elias Ward was standing there, alone, staring at the stars through the cracked viewport. "I knew you'd come," he said softly. "What have you done?" Rhea asked. Elias turned to face her, his expression heavy with guilt. "I sent them away," he said. "The ones who wanted to stop this madness. I gave the Alliance our position. They're coming, Rhea. Maybe they can end this before it's too late." For a moment, Rhea said nothing. The silence between them was thicker than space itself. Then she raised her gun. "You betrayed us," she said. "After everything they did, after Earth." Elias shook his head. "No, Rhea. You betrayed what we were fighting for. We were supposed to make them pay, not become like them. Look at what we've done. Whole worlds, millions dead. Do you even remember why we started this?" Rhea's hand trembled. For the first time in years, doubt flickered in her eyes. "You think they deserve mercy?" she asked. "They murdered billions. They burned our home. And now we're burning theirs," Elias said. "What difference does it make anymore?" Rhea lowered her weapon slowly, her breath heavy. "It makes every difference," she said. "Because they started it." Elias took a step closer. "Then finish it with justice, not vengeance." But before Rhea could respond, the the ship's alarm blared. Mercer's voice came through the comm. "Admiral, we've got incoming, massive energy signatures. Alliance Armada inbound." Rhea turned to Elias. "You brought them here." "Yes," he said quietly. "But I didn't come to destroy you. I came to stop you before they do." Rhea glared at him, fury and sorrow twisting inside her. "Then you failed." She turned and strode toward the door. "Lock him in," she ordered the guards. "He'll live long enough to see what happens next." Back aboard the Vanguard, the crew moved with practiced urgency. The sensors showed a vast fleet, hundreds of Alliance ships, weapons charged, moving straight toward them. Mercer looked at Rhea. "Admiral, we can't fight them all. We'll be destroyed." Rhea's eyes were cold. "Then we take as many as we can with us." The fleet formed up, engines flaring. Across the bridge, tension crackled like electricity. The Alliance ships emerged from hyperspace, their formation tight, their numbers overwhelming. A voice came through the comms, an alien commander offering terms of surrender. "Admiral Rhea Kane of the Ghost Fleet," the voice said. "You have nowhere left to run. Power down your weapons and surrender. The war ends today." Rhea smiled bitterly. "Yes," she said. "It does." She turned to Mercer. "Activate the imploder." Mercer hesitated. "Rhea, if we use that here, it'll destroy everything, our fleet too." "I know," she said. "But we won't die running." The gravity imploder charged, its core glowing with eerie blue light. The Alliance realized too late what she was doing. They opened fire, their shots tearing through human ships. Explosions lit up the void. The Vanguard shook violently, alarms screaming. "Shield collapsing," someone shouted. Rhea stood firm, her eyes locked on the enemy fleet ahead. "For Earth," she whispered. The imploder detonated. Space itself twisted, collapsing inward in a massive wave of energy. The explosion consumed everything, the Alliance ships, the Ghost Fleet, the stars nearby, all swallowed by the silent fury of vengeance. When the light faded, only debris remained, drifting quietly in the void. Hours later, in the wreckage of the Astrea, Elias Ward awoke. Somehow, the ship had been pushed clear of the blast. He limped to the viewport, looking out at the destruction. There was nothing left. Rhea Kane was gone. The Ghost Fleet was gone. The Alliance fleet was shattered. For a long time, Elias said nothing. Then he whispered, "You did it, Rhea. You ended it. But at what cost?" He activated the ship's black box recorder and began to speak. "To whoever finds this, remember us. Remember Earth. Remember that vengeance can destroy even those who seek justice. The Ghost Fleet is gone, but humanity will rise again, not from hatred, but from hope." As the Astrea drifted away from the ruins, the stars began to return, one by one, shining over the ashes of two empires. And somewhere, in the endless dark, it felt as if Earth's spirit was finally at peace. Years had passed since the destruction of the Ghost Fleet. The galaxy had changed forever. Where once there were proud fleets and shining worlds, now there were scars, silent systems and burned planets that told the story of humanity's vengeance. Many thought the humans were gone for good, wiped out in their own fire. But in the far edges of uncharted space, something stirred. On a small barren moon orbiting a dying star, a hidden base came alive. The Astrea had survived the blast, and with it, a handful of humans. Elias Ward had rebuilt what little he could. The survivors called themselves the Remnant. They were no longer soldiers of vengeance, they were guardians of memory. Every day, Elias looked at the stars and remembered Rhea Kane. Her voice still echoed in his mind, the fierce determination that had driven her to end everything. Sometimes he hated her for it. Sometimes he missed her. But he always understood her. One cold morning, he stood outside the base, staring at the horizon as the faint light of the star painted the rocks orange. Behind him, Lieutenant Sarah Dray stepped out. "The transmitters are ready, sir," she said. "We can start sending the signal today." Elias nodded. Good. The galaxy needs to remember we still exist, but not as ghosts. She looked uncertain. Do you really think anyone will listen after what we did? Elias smiled faintly. They will, eventually. Time heals fear, even if it leaves scars. The signal they prepared wasn't a threat or a declaration of war, it was a message of peace, a warning, and a promise. To the civilizations of the galaxy, Elias recorded, his voice steady. This is Captain Elias Ward of the Human Remnant. The war is over. We do not seek vengeance. We seek survival and understanding. Let the past rest in the ashes, where it belongs. When the signal was sent, it spread slowly through the network of abandoned relays and forgotten satellites. Many ignored it. Some feared it. But a few listened. One of them was Kira Solon, a young alien historian from the Thale Dominion. She had grown up hearing stories about the humans, monsters who destroyed worlds, demons of metal and fire. But as she listened to the message, she heard something different. Not rage, not hate, but sorrow. She became obsessed with finding the truth. Against the orders of her superiors, she set out in a small research ship, following faint traces of the signal through the void. Weeks passed before she reached the dead zone, the remains of the battle where the ghost fleet had vanished. The space there was quiet, almost sacred. Broken ships floated like tombstones, and shattered moons glimmered with frozen light. It was there that she found the Astrea, half buried in the dust of the barren moon. When she approached, defense drones surrounded her, weapons charged. She raised her hands and said calmly, "I'm not here to fight. I came to understand." Inside, Elias watched from the control room. He studied her through the screen, a Thale, one of the species that had helped destroy Earth. "You've got courage," he muttered. "Or no sense." Against Sarah's warnings, he allowed her to land. When Kira stepped into the base, the air was heavy with silence and old ghosts. She looked around, amazed by the human technology still running after all these years. Elias entered the room, his face older, his eyes tired but sharp. "You found us," he said. "Why?" Kira took a breath. "Because your message didn't sound like the monsters I was told about. I want to know the truth. What really happened to Earth? What really happened to you?" Elias studied her for a long moment before answering. "The truth," he said quietly, "is that everyone was wrong. We weren't heroes. We weren't monsters. We were desperate." He led her through the base, showing her recordings, Earth before the war, the betrayal of the Alliance, the rise of the Ghost Fleet, and finally, the destruction that ended everything. Kira watched in silence, her eyes wide with shock. "So much death," she whispered. "And for what?" Elias looked at her. "For survival. For memory. For justice twisted into something unrecognizable." When she turned to him, her expression was full of guilt. "My people helped destroy your world. I don't know how to make that right." Elias smiled sadly. "You can't. But you can make sure no one forgets what happened here. That's all that matters now." Over the following weeks, Kira stayed with the Remnant, learning about humanity, helping repair the base, and recording stories for the galaxy. For the first time in years, Elias saw hope. The humans began to build again, slowly, carefully. They repaired old ships, grew food, and taught their children about both the glory and the mistakes of the past. Kira sent messages to her people, urging peace and reconciliation. Some responded with curiosity, others with fear. But slowly, small delegations began to reach out. One day, as Elias stood on the command deck of the newly rebuilt Astrea II, he watched as alien ships approached, not as enemies, but as visitors. "They're coming," Sarah said quietly. "Not to fight," Elias replied. "To talk." The docking bays opened, and for the first time since Earth's fall, humans and aliens stood together without weapons. The meeting was awkward, quiet, full of tension, but it was a start. Elias looked at the stars, remembering the fire that had consumed them years ago. "Rhea," he whispered under his breath. Maybe this is what you were fighting for. Not revenge. A chance to begin again. The camera drones recorded everything. Across the galaxy, the footage spread. The legend of the Ghost Fleet began to change, from a story of terror to one of survival. And though Earth was gone, its people were not. They had risen from their own ashes, not as conquerors, but as builders of a new beginning. In the quiet of space, Elias stood beside Kira, watching the stars shimmer like a million distant memories. "So," she said softly, "what now?" He smiled faintly. "Now," he said, "we rebuild the future." And for the first time in a long, long age, humanity's story no longer ended in fire, it began again, in light.